Welcome to our channel. This is uh, Dr. Burugla Ramakrishna Rao, Government College, Jadcherla, and we are developing certain videos of zoology first year, second year, and final year graduation. And this is a very important step during the COVID-19 so as to utilize the time of the students to understand the lessons. Okay, as a part of this video development, today we are going to discuss the characteristics of sponges. Friends, you know very well that our animal kingdom is consisting of so many animals. Most of them animals are very well developed, but all these developed animals have derived or evolved from very primitive animals. What are the very primitive multicellular animals? If you see this one, the most primitive multicellular animals are sponges. They are belonging to a phylum called Porifera phylum. Okay, we are going to see the characteristic features of phylum Porifera and the details related to sponges. Let us get started. Friends, as a part of zoology curriculum at a graduation level, one has to understand the basic mechanism of how animals evolved. Okay, so during Cambrian period, all the living organisms, especially animals, might have evolved from the other sources. From the unicellular sources, the animal type of life might have formed during Cambrian period. We don't know about what has happened in the pre-Cambrian era. We have the fossil details or fossil records only from Cambrian period onwards. Okay, friends, all of you concentrate on this slide. Okay, this is the kingdom Animalia and the phylogeny of all animals. Okay, early protozoans, which were formed during the pre-Cambrian period, from early protozoans, the animal evolution started. Certain colonial protozoans might have given origin to the ancestors of sponges and ancestors of diploblasticans. Okay, so from colonial protozoans, sponges are formed first. Sponges have evolved first. Okay, so let us see some of the very interesting features during the course of evolution of sponges. Sponges evolved as multicellular animals, but these multicellular animals are lacking very, very important structures, especially the cells, let me call. The cells what are totally absent in sponges are the nerve cells and the sensory cells. Because of the absence of nerve cells and sensory cells, the sponges are unable to coordinate their cells together. Many cells are no doubt they are there, but these many cells are not performing coordinated functions because of the absence of nerve cells and sensory cells. So, the sponges remained at the base of the evolutionary tree as a blind evolutionary branch. Friends, you just understand that sponges are undergoing evolution, but because of that only the species, new species can be formed, but the evolution is not occurring above the taxa level of species because they are lacking very important factors of evolution, that is the coordination factors, mean the cells called sensory cells and nerve cells. So sponges are considered as parazoans. So all the animals are moving at one side with evolution. Sponges are moving towards the other side. And from all other animals, the evolution is going on, ongoing process, so that macroevolution is occurring and formation of genera, formation of orders, families, classes, like that above the level of the species, macroevolution is going on in all other animals, but this is not the case of sponges. So sponges are considered as parazoans. So they are included under subkingdom called Parazoa, and the study of sponges is called parazoology. Okay, then from the early protozoan source, from colonial protozoans, diploblasticans have originated, and the diploblasticans are having, for the first time in the evolutionary history, they are having tissues. They are the first tissued animals. They are the tissued animals. Because of tissue is present. Why tissue is there? Many cells are working together as a tissue. So what is making these cells work together? That's very important. What is making these cells together is the nerve cell and the sensory cell. Sensory cell is able to recognize the surroundings, and the nerve cell is able to coordinate the cells within the body. So different cells are acting or making their functions so with a coordinated manner. That's why the coordinated structure of cells is known as a tissue. So first time formation of tissues is there in diploblasticans. Their body is consisting of two layers during the embryonic development. These two layers are called ectoderm and endoderm. Ectoderm is going to develop epidermis in adult, and endoderm is going to develop the gastrodermis in adults. So, and all these diploblasticans, they are called radiates because they are almost all having cylindrical body, or their body is almost all saucer-like or umbrella-like. They are expressing radial symmetry. Because of that, all those animals which are expressing or which are exhibiting radial symmetry are included in this radiata that is called diploblastica. Okay, and from a particular ancestral stock of diploblasticans, triploblasticans might have evolved. These triploblasticans are having three germ layers. Diploblasticans are having only two germ layers, ectoderm and the endoderm. So in addition to these two, the triploblasticans have developed the third germ layer, that is mesoderm. And formation of mesoderm resulted in the production of numerous types of tissues. Because of many tissues are there and coordination at a higher level, that means formation of organs, formation of organ systems, and all together the development has taken very rapidly. Development in the sense evolution has taken very rapidly in the course of time, and as a result of that, many varieties of groups of animals have been evolved. Okay, the first ever triploblasticans are almost all flat. Their body doesn't possess any coelom. They are called acoelomates. Their body is quite flat. They are called flatworms. And from the flatworm ancestral stock, roundworms have been evolved. From there, you see the roundworms are belonging to the Nematoda, Nemertinia, Nematomorph, like that. And then the other organisms like annelids, arthropods, mollusks, like that. But we need to have a concept here that the mollusca is having some similarity or some, what is that called, affinities with the roundworms. So we cannot exactly place mollusca after arthropoda. So a lot of research is going on to establish what is the correct ancestral relationship of molluscans, whether it is directly there with the annelids or whether an organism that has given origin to roundworms and annelids also gave an origin to mollusca. It's a point of discussion. Okay, anyhow, friends, roundworms, annelids, arthropods, molluscans. So these are all the organisms having a commonality. What is the commonality? That their mouth is developed from the embryonic first pore called blastopore. Blastopore develops mouth in adult. Because blastopore is developing mouth in adult, these organisms are categorized under protostomia. Protostomiates, they are called. Proto, first, stoma, mouth. Mouth developed first during embryonic development. This is nothing but the first pore of embryonic development, that is blastopore. Blastopore forms mouth. And then the other category of animals in which blastopore is developed anus instead of mouth, say the blastopore is becoming anus. Mouth is developed afresh as second aperture. Such organisms are called deuterostomes. So you will have deuterostomes, echinoderms, hemichordates, and chordates. And a lot of debate is there to give correct position to Lapophorates. Lapophorates are having similarities with the roundworms, but they are included in Deuterostomia, and lot of debate is there. So, but their embryonic, they are all extinct. So their embryonic aperture has found mouth. So in that way they are called protostomiates. So lot of fossil data is to be analyzed to give the correct position of Lapophorates. Okay, echinoderms, hemichordates, and chordates. These are what are deuterostomes. And the formation of coelom is very, very different here. The formation of the coelom is directly from what is that called roof of Archenteron. The coelom here is known as enterocoel. Whereas I mentioned in flatworms there is no coelom at all in spite of having what is that mesoderm. And in roundworms there is a cavity, embryonic cavity, persists even in the adult as pseudocoelom or the false coelom. But in cygocoelomates like Annelida, Arthropoda, and molluscan organisms, there is a true coelom developed, but true coelom is developed by the splitting of mesoderm. Okay. Anyhow, coelom develops in two methods here. One is by the split of the mesoderm, and that is called cygocoel, and the other one is by enlarging the pouches of mesoblast cells on the roof of Archenteron. Okay. So, what is the summary of this slide is, from the early protozoans, unicellular organisms, multicellular organisms have evolved. These multicellular animals are mainly classified into parazoans and eumetazoans. Parazoans, no tissues. Eumetazoans are having tissues. Eumetazoans are further classified into diploblasticans, triploblasticans. Diploblasticans, of course, they are having radial symmetry. Triploblasticans are having bilateral symmetry. And the triploblasticans are further categorized into protostomiates, where blastopore forms mouth, deuterostomiates, where blastopore forms anus. And among protostomians, based on coelom, they are acoelomates, they are pseudocoelomates, they are schizocoelomates. And the deuterostomians are enterocoelomates. Let's go on to the next slide and let's start our Porifera phylum. Let us see the characteristics of Porifera. Okay. In ancient times, the sponges were observed by scientists and they were thought to be the plants. They were believed to be the plants. So because of their nature, they are completely sessile, they are completely sedentary. As they are sedentary and they are attached to the bottom of oceans and certain freshwater sources, most of the scientists felt that they may be a kind of plants. But the work of Bissonnel, Hatschik, Robert E. Grant, and others proved their animal nature. If you observe a sponge very closely, the water from outside goes inside and comes outside. So there is the movement of water in and out of a sponge. Generally, any plant doesn't make the movement of water from outside to inside and inside to outside. Okay, so it is pulling water inside and pushing water outside. And this is possible only when the cells are having very, very special muscle fibers. And you know very well that the presence of muscle fiber is the animal nature. So by that way, in that method, poriferans are proved once upon a time as animals. Okay, so their animal nature was proved. Robert E. Grant did a great work. Okay, so based on that, he established the phylum Porifera. Here, pore means pores, fera means bearers. So they are the pore bearers. So their body is having a lot of pores, small pores, like a pot, earthen pot you might have seen. Lot of small pores are there. These pores are called ostia, and these ostia attract water inside, from outside to inside. And there is a very big opening outside. This big opening is called osculum. Osculum may be one or osculum may be many. Okay, so anyhow, these are called pore bearers. Their body is having perforated, and so many pores are there. These are called inhalent pores. The inhalent pores are technically called ostia, and there is an exhalent pore that is called osculum. If you see the habitat of these sponges, and most of the sponges are marine, they prefer to live in shallow waters. But certain sponges are living in deep waters also. And some of the sponges belonging to Potamolepidae, Spongillidae families, they are inhabiting in fresh water also. So in fresh water and in marine water, we'll find the sponges. These are first multicellular animals. These are the first multicellular animals. Okay, body is consisting of lot of pores called ostia, but there are no tissues. Tissues are totally absent. As the tissues are absent, one cannot expect the presence of organs. Organs are also absent. Tissues are absent, organs are absent. And very interesting fact is that they don't have any nerve cells, any sensory cells. Okay, nerve cells and sensory cells are totally absent. They are completely sessile. They are sedentary. No sponge can move from one place to another place. They are completely sedentary, and they are leading sessile life or sedentary life, completely attached to the bottom of oceans or bottom of freshwater sources onto the substrate. Okay, so if they are what is that called, sessile, there is the possibility that other animals will attack them. So to prevent from the predators, they have developed a very, very important system called skeletal system. Not only it is giving protection against the predators, it is also supporting the body. Hence it is called a skeletal system. Skeletal system is made up of small spines. They are called spicules. And these spicules give proper shape to a sponge, and these spicules also protect these sponges from their predators. Okay, next, how is the body organized? In a sponge, we will find three basic structures. If you take a sponge and cut it, you take the cross section, and you'll find the wall there. And if you see the wall, you will find three structures there. So outer structure is called epinacoderm. It is called pinacoderm. It's a small layer, thin layer, consisting of so many pores. Okay, and the inner layer is there. That inner layer is called choanoderm. Choanoderm is made up of collar cells or choanocytes. In between the pinacoderm and choanoderm, there is a mass of cells. This gelatinous mass of cells is called mesohyl. In mesohyl, it's not mesoglia, or it's not a tissue. So it is only a gelatinous material which is binding all the cells together. It's only a cell aggregation. It's not a tissue. Because in a tissue, the cells will work coordinatedly. There is no coordinated functioning here. So that's why this is only an aggregation of cells. So in a sponge, we will find three basic structures: outer pinacoderm, inner choanoderm, and in between there is mesohyl, consisting of a number of varieties of cells. Okay, what is there inside a sponge? If you see inside a sponge, a very, very big cavity may be there, or sometimes the cavity may be occupied by a lot of ciliated chambers. Okay, the cavity in a sponge is known as spongiocele. Spongiocele means it is the cavity in a sponge. Okay, consisting of lot of ostia. Ostia are attracting water, and this water finally goes into the spongiocele, and from the spongiocele it is eliminated outside. So three basic structures we find: pinacoderm, choanoderm, and mesohyl. So these are the three very important structures. And for a sponge, if we need to understand what is that called organization, it's very difficult, because the symmetry of a sponge, because there are no organs at all, how can we say the symmetry? Okay, anyhow, based on the shape, we need to give the symmetry, but shape is also not symmetrical, it is totally asymmetrical. So sponges rarely having radial symmetry. A sponge is having radial symmetry, but most of the sponges, because of their irregular growth, so they are not showing any symmetry, they are totally asymmetrical. Very rarely they can show radial symmetry. What are very, very important things about a sponge? Sponges are very, very unique in developing certain very important structures. One is the spicules I mentioned already. Okay, we are going to see how many different types of spicules are there in the coming slides. And then the other very important thing in a sponge is the canal system. Canal system. It is exclusive property of a sponge. Sponges are having canals inside. What is the purpose of having these canals? So water moves inside through the canals. When water is moving through the canals, the nutrients from the water are absorbed. Oxygen is diffused into the tissues, into the cells, I'm sorry, there are no tissues. And then carbon dioxide will be diffused into water. So excretory products are liberated, reproductive products are liberated into the water that is flowing in canal system. So canal system can be mentioned as water transport system. That is an exclusive property of sponges. Having spicules, having canals. So these two are the exclusive properties of sponges. Having no tissues, of course, is also a very important feature of sponges. Okay, so we are going to discuss the canal system and all those things in this lesson. Reproduction occurs in sponges. Okay, asexual reproduction occurs either by fragmentation or by budding or by gemation, and sexual reproduction is there. So eggs are produced and sperms are produced. Now, these are almost all hermaphroditic in condition, sexual condition. They are bisexual. Even though they are bisexual, because of protandrous nature, the testes mature earlier than that of ovaries. We may not say it is ovary. A group of cells releasing eggs, a group of cells or a cyst-like structure releasing sperms. We cannot say it's a gonad. It's not an organ. It's only a cluster of cells. So even though sperms get matured earlier than the ova, that's why there is no question or no chance of self-fertilization, and the development takes place indirectly. There is a larva. Okay, larval stages are there, indirect development. So parenchyma, trachymella, and amphiblastula larvae are there. Three classes are there: Calcarea, Exactinellida, and Demospongia. So these are the general features of sponges. And in the slide you are observing many different types of sponges. You can see here Cycon, okay, crown sponge, and this is called a Hyloneema, glass rope sponge. This is Euspongia, and so many other sponges. And we are having Euplectella here. This is Euplectella. Euplectella is considered as it is also commonly known as Venus flower basket. Okay, friends, Spongilla is called bath sponge, right? Now, how is the morphology of a sponge? As I mentioned earlier in the last slide, so it is having two layers. Outer layer is called pinacoderm and inner layer is called choanoderm. And in between pinacoderm and choanoderm, all the cells are accommodated in the gelatinous substance called mesohyl. And you see the sponge body wall. The body wall of sponge is porous. So many pores are there. You can see the pores. So these pores are called ostia. What is the use of having pores? These pores will take the water from outside and give it to the very wide cavity what is present inside a sponge is called spongocoel, and water goes outside from the spongocoel through a very big opening. You see a very big opening. This opening is known as osculum. Okay, so presence of many different types of cells are there, and the cells are dividing their function. Division of labor can be seen among the cells. Okay, Only three structures are there: pinacoderm, choanoderm, mesohyl, and in the mesohyl number of varieties of cells are there. And if you see a sponge, there are certain small pores called ostia, and there are several canals inside, and we are going to label the canal based on their location, okay, whether they are incurrent canal or it is excurrent canal or it's a radial canal, like that. And then there is a very big cavity inside. It's not a space inside, let us say, and this space is called spongiocele. Spongiocele is not considered as coelom because it's opening outside. Okay, so this is the general morphology of a sponge. You concentrate on the slide. Different osculum is there, outside pore, choanocytes, ostium, porocyte, mesohyl. Mesohyl means it's the mass of cells, and spongiocele, a very wide cavity here, and spicules are small pointed structures. Okay, and then pinacocytes are there, and this is what is that called? A stalk is also there, amoebocytes. Okay, incurrent pore, like that. Okay, you see on the right side of the slide, I just described this canal system here, and we are going to see the slides of canal system, many slides of canal system in the coming time. Okay, so the sponge, body wall of the sponge is folded like this. This is a folding of body wall. Because of the folding of body wall, canals are created. Canals are there. So let us start from ostium. This is ostium. Okay, a pore is there, and this ostium allows water to go into the body. And what is the first canal that is receiving water? That's called incurrent canal. This is called incurrent canal. And incurrent canal takes the water and gives it to radial canal. This is called radial canal through an aperture called prosopyle. And this radial canal, it is there around the sponge. It is there around the sponge like this. Okay, first round, second round, like that, because the sponge body wall is folded, so you will find a round canal like that. That's why it is called radial canal. And this radial canal allows the water to go into another canal. This is called excurrent canal. Okay, this portion is called excurrent canal. Excurrent canal opens into spongiocele through another aperture called apopyle. This is prosopyle, this is apopyle. Okay friends, let us see. So ostium, incurrent canal, radial canal, excurrent canal, apopyle, outside. Spongiocele to outside. So this is a very, very simple morphology of sponge. External morphology and internal morphology. Okay. The unique system in sponges is the canal system. Canal system is the unique system. But canal system is very, very simple in some sponges, very much complicated in other sponges. Okay. Anyhow, from simple to complex, canal system can be divided into three types. One is called asconoid type of canal system. The second one is called syconoid type of canal system. And the third one, which I will show in the next slide, that is known as leuconoid type of canal system. Asconoid type, ascon type, sycon type, leucon type. These are the three types of canal systems. In this slide, I am presenting only two types. Okay, because the leuconoid or leucon type of canal system is very complex, and that is why a separate slide is introduced. Now is incorporated. You see the asconoid type of canal system is very, very simple. Say there is one aperture called ostium. There are many apertures actually. Apertures called ostium. So let me concentrate on only one. Ostium directly opens into spongiocele. Spongiocele directly opens outside through osculum. How water enters and exits. Let us see. Water from outside enters ostia, spongiocele, osculum, and goes outside. Very, very simple. The sponge wall is not at all folded. It is very plain, soft. So the wall is having pores. Okay, and these pores are allowing the water, and water is directly going outside. And this is called ascon type of canal system. And example, leucosolenia. Leucosolenia. Now you see the wall of a sponge. In the next diagram, you see the wall of the sponge got folded here, folded. Because it is folded, it created so many canals. Earlier in asconite type, there are no canals, only pores, ostia, spongiocele, osculum outside that. But here, because the wall got folded, it created canals. Okay, let us see this canal. This canal is having touch with outside, it is allowing water inside. This is incurrent canal. Incurrent canal opens into radial canal. Radial canal opens into excurrent canal. Excurrent canal opens into spongiocele. Spongiocele opens outside through osculum. So let me tell you once again: incurrent canal, radial canal, excurrent canal, outside. Spongiocele outside. So this is very, very simple. In this diagram, you may feel that a very big, large opening is there here, but it is not like that. Okay, so this area is covered with the cells. Mesohyl cells are there. So let us see the actual diagram. So this is the wall. Outside wall is called pinacoder. Inner wall is folded like this. Inner wall got folded. Outer wall is plain, but inner wall got folded. Okay, this inner folded wall is known as choanoderm. Right. What are the pores? Dermal pores means ostium or ostia. Ostia open into incurrent. Incurrent gets open into radial. Radial opens into excurrent. Excurrent through apopyle opens into spongiocele, and spongiocele opens outside. What kind of complexity you observed here in asconite type canal system is very simple. Because of foldings here, it created certain canals. So that is the only thing here. This is called syconite type, example Sycon and Grantia. Actually, there are 3 types, but we have seen only 2 types here. In the next slide, let us see the 3rd type. You see here what has happened. Earlier, what we have seen the syconite type of canal system. In this syconite type of canal system, the wall has got folded, and because of folds, choanocytes are also concentrated around the canals, and these canals which got folds and further folds here in this Leucon type, they created several flagellated chambers. Because the choanocytes are having flagellae, and they are going to create flagellated chambers, and these flagellated chambers can accommodate water for a longer period. As a result of that, food can be grabbed very easily, and the excretion of materials can be done very easily. So that is why this system is said to be the most effective system. This system is the most effective system. So Leucon type of canal system can be classified into Eurypylus, example Lucilla, and Ephodal, example Geodia and Stellata, and diplodal system, example Oscarella. So okay, these flagellated chambers are accommodating water up to some extent. Up to some time, they can store the water. Because water got stored for some time, whatever food materials are there in water are grabbed by the flagellae. Not the cilia, they are flagellae. Okay, so these flagellated chambers are accommodating water, and from the flagellated chambers, excurrent canal, through the excurrent canal, it goes to the spongiocele, and from spongiocele through the osculum, it will go outside. So what difference you have noticed here? The only difference is flagellated chambers. Flagellated chambers are present. But how these flagellated chambers are connected with the incurrent and excurrent canals, based on that it is further complicated into 2 other types called ephodal type and diplodal type. Ephodal and diplodal. Here in the case A, that is Eurypylus, you just observe and understand. Incurrent canals are directly communicating into the flagellated chambers. Okay, then the flagellated chambers are directly opening into the spongiocele. Okay, so there are direct openings. Now let us see the ephodal system. In ephodal system, the structure will be like that. A piece of sponge wall is taken here to describe the ephodal system. Let us see, this is the incurrent canal. Okay, this is dermal pore, ostium entering into the incurrent canal. But here the incurrent canal is not directly open into the flagellated chamber. Incurrent canal is opening into the flagellated chamber through a small duct here. Okay, so this here the flagellated chamber is opening into the excurrent canal through a small duct. This duct is called aphodos. Because of aphodos, a duct is there where flagellated chamber is opening into excurrent canal through a duct. So this duct is called aphodos. Because of the aphodos, the system is called aphodal system. Okay, flagellated chambers communicate with excurrent canal by aphodos. Okay, next, so this is that one. And next, let us see the further more complicated system. Let me tell you the first one, A, where the flagellated chambers are directly opening into the excurrent canal. Here, flagellated chambers are not directly opening into excurrent canal but are opening into excurrent canal through a duct called aphodos. Now let us see the third system. In this system, the flagellated chambers are having two ducts outside and inside. Okay, on either side there are two ducts are there. Flagellated chambers are receiving water from incurrent canal through one duct called prosodus, and it is connected to excurrent canal by another duct called aphodos. Because two ducts are there, this system is called diplodal type. Okay, uripilus, apodal, diphlodal. Uripilus, flagellated chambers directly come in contact with the excurrent canal. And then aphodal, flagellated chambers are coming in contact with the excurrent canal through aphodos. Here, the flagellated chambers are having connected with incurrent canal through prosodus and excurrent canal with the aphodos. So this is a very important explanation related to the Leucon type of canal system. Let's see now. The other system of sponges is found in certain sponges belonging to Demospongia. Let's see this one. We have to understand one very important thing. This is called Ragon type. Before we can understand the Ragon type, let us understand the other types. In calcareous sponges, the canal system is attained by asconite type or syconite type. Either asconite type or syconite type, the Leucon type of canal system can be modified. But in demosponges, this Leucon type of canal system is derived from the flagellated chambers are developing from another source. Okay, so they are developing from a larval stage. That larva is called Ragon. Hence, this type of canal system is known as Ragon type of canal system. Okay, so we have a very big spongiocele here. Earlier, the spongiocele is very narrow, but here we have the very big, very wide open spongiocele is there, and in the wall of sponges, several flagellated chambers are there. The flagellated chambers are opening directly into spongiocele, and there are certain walls. The basal wall is called hypophyre, and then the upper wall is called spongophyre. Spongophyre and hypophyre. In hypophyre, there are no flagellated chambers, but flagellated chambers are there in spongophyre. Okay, so in this way it is developed. You just see here, it's a very big cavity present, and these cavities, dermal pores are there. Dermal pores receive water, and then it goes into the subdermal cavity, and from the cavity it goes into the excurrent canal, and excurrent canal opens into spongiocele, and spongiocele directly goes outside. Okay, so this type of canal system is known as Ragon type of canal system. Okay, now let us understand what is the very important thing here. One is asconite type, which is very simple. It is coming and going like this. In this syconite type, first it comes like this into the incurrent canal through ostia, and from incurrent canal into the radial canal through prosopyle, from radial canal to the excurrent canal through apopyle. Prosopyle is between incurrent and radial. Apopyle is between excurrent and spongiocele. Okay, so this is like this. And here you notice the difference here. So here flagellated chambers are much complicated. Flagellated chambers are directly receiving water and directly sending through the excurrent canal. This is uripilus. Okay, and here there is apodus, a duct is there to communicate with the excurrent canal, and here there are two ducts. So incurrent canal communicates with the prosodus, and flagellated chamber communicates with the excurrent canal with apodus, and this is the Ragon type. Ragon type, because flagellated chambers are concentrated only in the wall. Here the flagellated chambers are completely occupying the space of sponge inside. So the sponge looks solid here. Here the sponge is hollow. Here sponge is having somewhat folded chambers. Here the sponge is having only flagellated chambers, and here it is somewhat hollow with the flagellated chambers. Okay, the other system that is developed in sponges is the skeletal system. Okay, the skeletal system is made up of spicules. These spicules are of various types, and these are, what are these called? These are called scleroblast cells. The scleroblast cells, based on their position, if they are positioned like this, a triradiate. If they are positioned on single axis, monoxons are formed. So spicule system is a very important system in sponges. You see, so many varieties of spicules, types of spicules are there. If a spicule is having only one axis, these are called monoxons. Monoxons. And this monoxon, you just see, this monoxon in the middle is having a pointed structure only at one end, and other end is not pointed. This is called monoctinal monoxon. But here you see, the monoxon is pointed at both the ends. This is called diactinal monoxon, and this is called curved monoxon. Because only one axis is there, this is known as monoxons. If three rays are there, this is called triaxon, triaxon, triaxon. If four rays are there, four rays, okay, this is called tetraxon. This is called calthrop. Okay, tetraxons are there. And if many axes are there, this is called polyaxons. Polyaxons. If a triaxon is having 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, this is called hexactinal triaxon. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 pointed ends are there. Hexactinal triaxon. Diactinal monoxon. Hexactinal triaxon. It's actually a triaxon, but having 6 pointed ends. And like this, polyaxons are there, and sometimes the other structures are also there, and microscleres are there, and megascleres are there. These are all constituting a base skeleton for a sponge. Okay, in this way these are formed. You see, the scleroblasts are there. Scleroblast position is very important. A stem cell scleroblast forms 3 cells here, and 3 cells are in 3 different directions, forming triradiate. The 3 cells are there. Here you take 3 cells are on the same line, it forms monoxon. So based on the angle in which the cells move to form the spicules, based on that they are formed either monoxon or triaxon or tetraxon or polyaxon, like that. Okay, sponges are having number of cells. Pinacocytes are forming the pores. Pinacocytes are there forming the pinacoder, and porocytes are there which are forming the pore to receive water. Amoebocytes deliver nutrients to the cells and forms other types of cells like chromocytes giving color, tropocytes storing the food for some time and distributing them, and partly digested food actually. Myocytes are able to contract, and thymocytes are there to store the food material. Choanocytes, as I mentioned, these are called collar cells. These are called flagellated cells. They are very important cells. They feed the nutrients and they perform intracellular digestion. Colonocytes and lymphocytes secrete collagen, and desmocytes are there. They are very long and slender to cover the long canals inside. And archaeocytes are totipotent cells. They can be formed into any other type of cells. And sclerocytes secrete spicules. Spicules are 3 types: calcoblasts, silicoblasts, and spongioblasts. Okay, calcareous spicules, siliceous spicules, and spongin fibers. Oocytes, eggs, And gland cells are there. They secrete a kind of slimy substance over the surface of a sponge. And reproduction in sponge occurs in two ways. One is called asexual and the other one is sexual. Asexual reproduction occurs by fragmentation. When a sponge becomes into small pieces, each piece will develop a sponge. And small structures are removed from a sponge, okay, are growing as small bud, and this bud develops into a sponge. And some of the cells moving out of the sponge through canal system, and those are called gemmules, and these gemmules develop sponges, and all these are called asexual methods of reproduction. Sexual method mostly occurs by the formation of gametes, the male gamete and female gamete. Male gamete sperm is formed by, because the flagellum is needed, sperm is formed by choanocyte, and egg is developed by archaeocyte. Okay. The sperms are formed in a cyst, and this cyst will burst so that all the sperms will be released and they move to the other sponge. Because of protandrous condition, no possibility of self-fertilization, so cross-fertilization can occur. And the development is there. And during the development, a larva is there. Larval development occurs, and because larva is going to form the adult, not the egg is directly going to form adult. Egg forms adult indirectly by a larva. So this development is called indirect development. And larvae are amphiblastula, parenchyma, and trichymella. Parenchyma is the solid one, amphiblastula is the hollow one. Okay, this is the development. Ovum undergoes cleavages, 8-cell stage, 6-cell stage, and stomoblastula, and invagination occurs. And as a result of invagination, a structure is developed. So these are all the developmental stages of Scypha. So three classes are there: Calcarea, Exactinellida, and Demospongia. Calcarea cycon, Exactinellida elonema, and Demospongia, that is Chelina, Euspongia, like that. So phylum Porifera is classified into, I mentioned, three classes. What are the three classes? Calcarea or Colcispongia, Exactinellida or Trioxonida, or Hyalospongia, and Demospongia. Calcarea has two orders, Homocoela and Heterocoela. Exactinellida has two orders, namely Hexasterophora and Amphidiscophora, whereas Demospongia is having three subclasses, Tetractinellida, Monoxonida, and Keratosa. Tetractinellida, Myxospongida, and then Carnosa, and then Corystida. And Monoxonida is having Hydromerina, and what is the next one? Helicondrina, and Poecilosclerina, Haplosclerina, with the examples. These are the references, and this video is developed as a part of giving online education only to those students who are unable to attend the classes because of COVID. And this video is intended for the poor students who are learning, who are taking education by public funded systems like government degree colleges. And I have taken all the photographs and the ideas, the knowledge from these books cited here. Thank you very much.